Hey, Johnny and Linda and Tony are very good at their technical skill. They're rock stars. Let's make them the boss of people tomorrow and have them lead. Now they feel the pressure of now being a leader responsible for more, and instead of empowering, they put their thumbs down harder because that's all they know is to produce. And that can hand grenade, so to speak, an organization.
Hello and welcome to the Leadership Launchpad, where we help technical managers improve themselves, their teams, and their organizations. My name is Matt Jertson, the founder of Better Everyday Studios, and my guest today is Casey Thomas, the Vice President of Global Learning, Development, and Performance at Seagate Technologies. Computer technology has become so advanced that it often feels invisible. And in some cases, it actually is. The manufacturing of computer hardware is literally pushing against the laws of physics to make things smaller and improve performance. Seagate is one of the companies pushing against those laws, which is why I was so excited to talk with Case today about leadership in this high-tech manufacturing environment. This conversation touches on so many important lessons, but a few things that you can expect to learn are why EQ is so essential in a manufacturing environment, what leaders can do to create space for innovative voices, and how important it is to be clear about the purpose and outcomes you are trying to achieve as a leader. Before we get into that discussion, I do want to remind you that if this is your first time listening to the show, make sure you subscribe because we have a lot of great episodes coming up and you do not want to miss a single one. If you are already subscribed, then I humbly ask that you share this show with at least one other person because that, after all, is how we grow, and I can't tell you how much it means to me. So with that, let's get into the discussion with Casey Thomas. Case, welcome to take two of our recording on the Leadership Launchpad. How are you doing today?
I'm good, brother, and glad to be with you. And the robots got us, or what the gremlins, I think it was, got us here in the technical space, but all good.
Something, yeah, but it's okay. We're talking about the technical space today anyway, so that's exciting. I'm always amazed at just what technology can do and how invisible so much of it seems. So you sent me a video about Seagate that was titled "It's Just a Hard Drive," that kind of went into the details of just how amazing this ubiquitous technology is. Tell me a little bit more about what Seagate does.
Yeah, the wizards, I call them, right? Seagate's been around for 45 plus years now, and we do mass data, and we store infinite potential. It's just amazing to me. Um, we talk about purpose and why people do stuff. Well,
Yeah,
Seagate does
yeah,
mass data. So everything from the video you take at the football game to what NASA's doing to the creatives of the world and AI, there quietly in the background are Seagate's drives just spinning 24/7 in the cloud and doing what they do. So, what a cool thing to be part of that fabric where the products we create in high tech manufacturing, which doesn't exist much anywhere else on the planet, to be in an organization that impacts the universe every day. I just totally dig that. And that video actually makes my skin. What do you have? Little hairs. Like it's so amazing to me the technology, not only what hard drives do, but the modern technology and where Seagate's going. We have new cutting edge technology, heat assisted magnetic recording. So Hammer, it's called, and Mosaic is the product name of those sort of things. So powered by Mosaic, but it's at the nanoscale, the heat
yeah.
and the lasers. And that's why that video is so fun to watch on how the wizards can create something like that. It took 2 decades, billions of dollars. And I think another cool component is so many hands touched that product over the years. There was a lot of time where
Hmm.
people were like, this cannot be done. That was not ever going to happen. And here it is going
Yeah,
out to the universe in a way actually that saves space, saves power. You can put more data per platter. So in the modern world of sustainability, all those things are coming to fruition and data is exploding. And so Seagate
yeah.
and what they do, but I don't think that's just a hard drive. People see a hard drive, oh, there it is at the store, or maybe it's in the cloud. No conception of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. And that's okay. That's what technology should be. But if we acknowledge just
Yeah.
how extraordinary it is and what it takes to bring it to market, I'm in awe. I'm in awe.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link to the video in the show notes so that people can
Yeah.
see it because it is amazing. And it is true, as you say, the people who are responsible for this stuff are nothing short of wizards. And it's at every level, right? We usually, when we think of high technology, we think of maybe kind of the design, or maybe, it's like the engineers or the physicists that are thinking. But at every step of the creation process, from the forethought of what's possible to the design of it to the actual implementation, the technicians, the people working in the manufacturing centers, it's incredible. And I think that one of the things that makes me so interested, something that I saw a lot when I was at SpaceX, is this what leadership looks like in that kind of environment. Because uh, usually when we think about leadership development, I think a lot of times we think about something in an office, something that's relatively static, where it's a very different environment that SpaceX operates in, that Seagate operates in. Um, what's different about leadership in that environment?
Yeah, leadership's leadership under one theory, right? And we're here to bounce stuff around to hopefully be
Yeah,
helpful to folks that listen in. And leadership's hard, no matter where you're doing it. It's a mantle, it's an honor, but it's hard. And I would contend, it's getting harder in the modern world with people that can be remote or hybrid remote, and so much information, and things change so quickly in the business environment. It is different than days of past, but
yeah.
there's some threads of leadership that exist in any organization in any type of industry, but manufacturing brings with it additional color and flavor, let's call it, right? I do think some additional challenges that leaders have to be cognizant of so they don't fall into traps. and
Yeah.
and I will even add, not only the whole ecosystem as you described it too, but the supply chain, right? We are
Mm,
not just insular.
hmm.
Okay, we can have the best team in the universe, but we rely on partners to get us the stuff we
Yeah.
need to do the magic that we need, and then get it out to the planet. So there is a whole lot more, I think, that is considered in leadership here, and more intricacies of how those parts connect, that really make it an interesting space as we grow and develop people in high tech manufacturing. So, for example, here's when I was talking to a senior leader, and we were talking about this new extraordinary technology of mosaic technology. I said, does that really change how we do not supply chain? It does supply chain change, and how does our operations process change? Does it? And he says,
Yeah.
it doesn't change. I said, tell me more. I said, because you would think with such an extraordinary thing coming to market, there would be switches. And he says, it's a matter of degrees. And he says, for example, we need widget X that goes into creating these drives. Well, we've had widget X for lots of years, but now with heat assisted magnetic recording and the nanoscale, back to the video on the wizards, we actually have to even contemplate the packaging that widget comes to us in, because the packaging can impact things at the nanoscale that will then impact quality and how all of these components come together at the nanoscale, right? And that
Mm,
impacts our product that goes out the door. So even that, I mean, think about that. So that means we have to go back to our suppliers and go, okay, that packaging, for example, doesn't work. We have to adjust that. And then everything in between as we scale and we get everything out the door, and then everyone that gets it out the door too. So there are just more components, I would call it, and more intricacies to handle. And you mentioned it too, the manufacturing floor. And we have PhDs that are in their bubble suits and doing things at 12-hour shifts around the world, to put all the components together, and create the magic, I call it. But when you're scaling, or you go into a downturn, or you have a new product, how do you turn the radiostat knobs of having the right people on the floor to scale to what we
hmm.
are, and then what we know and projecting we're needing in the future? And we changed our business model a little bit too. Instead of building to forecast, we're doing build to order, and we're having our amazing customers have to tell us what they're going to need so we can plan.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
you throw all that into the blender, and it creates an
Yeah.
amazing orchestra of things. And as we develop leaders in that space, there are some additional components, I contend, that you have to deal with as a leader in this particular space.
Yeah, well, and I mean, as you were talking there, I can imagine one of the most critical things for leadership in that kind of environment is that ability to communicate clearly and timely with everyone, of sharing, because as you said, from one angle, what you're doing looks like what you've been doing for a long time. But because of some changes that are invisible in many senses, you need to do things differently. And so, as the leader, especially a frontline leader, it's critical to you to remember, like, not everybody on your team maybe has access to the information that
Mhm.
you get. And so, passing as much information through you as quickly as possible to your team, so that the team members see the changes that are happening and the implication that that has on their work stream, how they do work every day, and then the implications that that can have kind of to the end customer as well.
Well, for sure, and I think that, so. This morning I had my all hands meeting with my team global. It's
Yeah.
very early in the morning for some, very late for some, and we assemble once every other month live as remote and hybrid we are, and we have folks at the facilities, and I love it when the little squares populate, and we around the world. But I asked them this morning. I said, "Let's go into a quick breakout group and tell me what you think is different about manufacturing and leadership in manufacturing." It was fascinating to see what they came back with, because we are in
Yeah.
learning, development, and performance. Our organization that has really humbling responsibilities to do everything from technical upskilling to developing them over a career to C-suite level leadership
Yeah.
development to senior level middle managers, our newest leaders that often don't get attention in companies, uh, and then performance, our objectives and key results, our performance system itself. So we are just really lucky to touch and hug a lot of things to help the business succeed, and we're here solely for that purpose. But what came up in their questions, what they're as they war gamed in their groups and said, "Hey, the first one was interesting, high EQ." And we've got everyone from
Mm,
we got 5 generations in Seagate to include on my team. We've got all different flavors of generations and how they see the universe. High EQ was number one, and number two is what you said, communication, right? If things change, and things are always changing, but if we're doing a new product launch, how do we best communicate at every level so people feel connected to the work they do daily on the assembly line or in finance or
yeah.
otherwise in
Yeah.
sales, so
Yeah.
they feel that energy and connection to get stuff done, but they see that, talk about performance and leadership. If they feel connected and see themselves in it, people will row so hard because they belong to something that matters, right? And our way
Yeah.
of doing that recently was shifting our entire paradigm to objectives and key results, OKRs, which are famous out there. They worked for us for lots of
Yeah.
reasons, but it helped us do that
Yeah.
communication piece. But the other one was EQ. I thought, let's
Yeah.
talk more. Well, in the complicated space, you've even alluded to it there in your question, is how do we remain connected if someone's on a 12-hour shift in manufacturing, right? 12 hours, and they're tired when they go home, and they're, how do you stay connected and honor and respect their work and what they do, and they're doing the kind of the same thing? How do you keep someone like that motivated? And they're key to our business,
Yeah.
right? And so there's,
Yeah.
just like any other business, all those factors mixed together and creating motivation. But I was very proud and not excited to see, and not surprised. At the end of the day, it is first, last, and always about the people. No matter what we do, what we push to the universe, whether it's product or software or anything else out there. In our view, it's about the people, and that includes the people that get our product out the door and our customer out there. And I like that we're talking in the space of EQ, up and down and
Yeah.
laterally. We're people trying to do the best
Yeah.
we can. And how do you make that entire, all the echelons go in a way like this, in the symphony, in the orchestra of Seagate? It's extraordinary to me to watch and be part of.
I love how when you kind of define DQ, you defined it as connecting with people and like understanding them so that you can develop those strong relationships and honor them and motivate them. I'd be interested, what do you, since it was one of the first things that got called out, what do you all do to help develop that? Because I think that's one of the challenging things, especially in the technical space, is somebody's an individual contributor. And I mean, this is true anywhere. As an individual contributor, you're promoted because of your technical ability or your ability to act as an individual to get a job done. And then as soon as you get promoted, it's like everything's completely different. And it kind of doesn't, it's not about you to get things done. It's about how you work with people. What do you do to help, especially when people are first getting promoted, to help kind of develop that AQ, considering it's something that's maybe not valued that much before in somebody's career, but now it's like such an essential
Yeah.
component of being successful as a manager?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's a trap everyone can fall into. Hey,
Yeah.
Johnny and Linda and Tony are very good at their technical skill. They're rock stars. Let's make them the boss of people tomorrow and have them lead.
Yeah.
Okay, in one
Yeah.
logical sense, that makes sense, but no one is developing those people and that high talent that deserve leadership and are performing well. But it's a whole different ecosystem. They can be individual
Yeah.
contributor on Friday, and on Monday they have 10 humans they're responsible for. And then I'll even add to the flavor and the complexity is, then, if not equipped, they overpronate. Okay. They over
Oh,
control.
interesting.
Okay. Because now they feel the pressure of now being a leader responsible for more. And instead of empowering, they put their thumbs down harder because that's all they know is to produce.
Yes.
And that can
Yes.
hand grenade, so to speak, an organization. So
Yeah.
being aware of that, one, got to be aware of it and have honest conversations as leaders. By the way, it's everyone says that, but you got to be paying attention and
Yeah.
just get honest about it, right? And then two, we developed internally a course called New Leaders Essentials. I have instructional designers. We always go to the business. Hey, what do you need? And with the business,
Hmm.
we said, what do you think are the things we need? Let's say um, on the line that are most stressful for new leaders, and where do you see the seams and gaps? Because if we build this with the business, we're building what they need. So again, listening to understand. I'll come back to that in a second. But we then look deeper on the bench and go, okay, of your emerging leaders that you think have the skill and ability and are performing very well, let's start early and build those skill sets so that if you want to have a Friday to Monday change for that person, make them leader, they can lean in comfortably, calmly, and humanly connect with others instead of be stressed. And then when you're stressed, you tend to over control. So we build to that, and we build to it with the business because that's who we're here to support, and we leverage a
Yep.
whole lot of expertise to do that in our little piece of the universe. And then we also give, we're uh, there's the contention, right? Our engineers different, how they see the world different. We're made of engineers, the wizards, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wizards see the
Yeah.
world through wizard goggles. All right. But wizards cannot do all the things they need to do if they're only in their goggle land. So which goggles are you wearing? How big's your aperture? And like our CEO says, the best stuff happens when you just get in a room with a bunch of very smart people and you duke it out, right? That's how the best innovation occurs. And you may not be, it's always friendly, but emotions can be high because strong opinion people that are wizards have strong, and that's good. And then we figure out the best stuff. That's why Seagate's still here, by the way. And that's why we can come to market with a brand new technology that blows everybody out of the water. But part of that is listening to understand, I guess, is one nugget that some people tend to forget. Listening to understand instead of listening to respond. Okay. High performing people that do well come with all the components of that. And that's good. You want high performing. But at some point, you have to transition from individual to organizational, right? The enterprise, as it were. And so we start talking about listening to understand just in your daily dialogues. Are you listening to hear what that person's saying? Or are you just listening because you want to turn around and do whatever your response is going to be? Even that phraseology is helpful in terms of just how we talk to each other, and it challenges each other. And oh, by the
Yeah.
way, the receiver that actually gets to say his, her, or their opinion is heard. They feel heard.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's very
Yeah.
simple, but sometimes the best stuff in the world is the simple stuff. It doesn't have to be, overly saucy. It's about people, and we all want to do well. And so, how do you create the conditions and the culture that allow for good conversations, hearty conversations? We take care of each other, and Seagate's very lucky. We don't have a whole lot of attrition necessarily, comparatively
Hmm.
speaking, because the
Hmm.
culture of the company, and culture eats culture eats strategy for breakfast kind of commentary. I've
Yeah.
seen that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I've totally
Absolutely.
agree. So
Yeah.
dialogue, conversation, even with OKRs, when we implemented it, it's not about data and how many things have you done. It's about of our few objectives and our key results that are outcome based. It's not that we're doing 300 things, yay you, but if those 300 things are not contributing to an outcome to be successful in high-tech manufacturing, we're way off kilter. That means we're focusing on a whole
Mm.
bunch of noise that gets in the way. So even our OKRs, and why we snagged hold of that particular methodology, is it's about conversations and ability to pivot if you need to, because things are
Hmm.
always changing. But one layer below that is space to give people permission to challenge. Everyone said, oh, think innovatively. Be an innovative thing. Okay, I
Yeah.
love it. That's jazz hands talk, and
Yeah.
I agree with it. But in the real world, okay, how do you actually do it? How do you
Yeah.
empower really smart people to challenge norms, to really say, you know
Yeah.
what? That
Yeah.
I don't know. That maybe what about this way? Because often the train's moving so fast, there may be a voice there, but if you don't create space for the voice to be heard, and we have a number of ways we do that, the the train keeps moving and you lose that innovation you didn't even know was there, right? That sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
I find joy in that. Our people and places structure, our organization in Seagate culture, we're so lucky to be in with the businesses, right? Some HRs are
Yeah.
over here, and we'll go to HR when we need a thing, and that can be perfectly fine. Depends on the culture of the company.
Yeah.
We tend to be in the foxhole for as a military.
Yeah.
We're in with, because if you're in with and you're rubbing elbows
Yeah.
and you have the trust, you can go next door and say, "Hey, what do you need?" Where is your
Yes.
gap and seam? And then we build to the gap and seam, and then everybody wins. And that is acutely
Yeah.
our charge in learning development performance, right? Now there's art, there's
I like it.
science, it's tough, it's bloody knuckles, not every day's perfect. You're dealing with humans, you're
Mhm.
dealing with all the things, but that's also the very space where you can have the most impact, right?
Yeah. I want to come back to OKRs, but before we go there, you mentioned the creating space for innovative voices or for people to speak up, because I think that's really critical. It's like, everybody in the world is saying like we need to be innovative, how, we need to move faster, we need to try new ideas, but then they're focused on, well, but we've always done it this way, or to your point, the momentum. So maybe just one example, what is an example of how you make sure to create that space? Or what is an example of something that a manager could do to create that space on their team so that people feel comfortable speaking up?
Yeah. Well, one, just as an aside, you got to believe it. Okay, a lot of people take lip service and they go, "Oh, let's be innovative," but
Mm,
no, they don't really feel it. It's
mm,
not in their belly, and then they just go back to what they know because they have to perform and get stuff done. So if that's who you
hmm.
are, and I've seen leaders like that, own it. Be genuine and own it, but do not pretend. Some pretend, "Oh, let's do some innovation," and they give it lip service, and then the team wants to lean in and challenge norms, and then they get a face punch when they do so, so to speak. Okay,
Yes.
you've destroyed the culture of the organization. No one's ever going to want to lean in
Yeah.
because you said it,
Yeah.
but you didn't really live it. So one, just,
Yeah.
and if it's not in you, I talk about people over many years. It's okay. Lead
Yeah.
organically. All right. Hopefully, it has a people component, and I share all the time. Um, this is from the great Becky Halstead, who is a faculty for Thayer Leadership on heart and mind. And I really glommed onto this one. I'm a simple guy, don't remember much, but everything we decide, and she talks about it in a different way, it's some combination of heart and mind. Okay. If an organization, you have logic, you have mind, you got to get stuff done. Organizations must have logic and mind, otherwise they won't perform
Yeah.
well. At the same time,
Yeah.
there's some degree of combination of heart, the human part we've talked about. They are
Yeah.
never equal. Okay. So her challenge is, hey, if you can do some combination of heart and mind, they're never equal, then you're in the best space as a leader. So it's kind of getting to what you asked here. And if it's too much heart, that's also not good for an organization. Oh, we're just a bunch of hug units and rainbows
Hmm.
and unicorns. You
Hmm.
got to get
Hmm.
stuff done in the
Hmm.
modern world. You'll be eaten alive if you don't. So thinking about it
Yeah.
in those terms, and we use a particular tool from Thayer Leadership, who's a partner and helps us develop our leaders, our more senior leaders, and it's called the Leader's Intent. It has purpose, end state, and key tasks. Okay, and the reason I mentioned that
Mm.
particular tool is we've kind of baked that into the DNA. When you know your purpose, what do you? Why are we doing this thing? Why? What's our why? And if you know the end state, what does success look like? And then you know what the key tasks are. What are the key things we must do as a collective? When leaders give that a leader's intent to get this product out the door, for example, or this thing in the supply
Yeah.
chain, or this thing in finance, that tool allows, because they see the end state and they see why we're doing it, everything else below they can figure out on their own. So your wicked smart
Yes.
youngsters, it may be, by the way, an intern. I tend to do this a lot, and I'm amazed if you bring your talent to the table and let them have a voice, they will think of things you never would have thought of. I don't care how smart you are, how experienced you are, but if you create the room for them to use it, we've had multiple times over a career. I've actually one time said, I really don't know, senior guy, I don't know what to do here. And that brings in vulnerability and trust. I said, because a lot of people think the more senior you get, the more you got to know everything. You're the boss of stuff. And there's this weird, subtle pressure to know everything because you're the SVP of X, Y, or Z. The reality is, in today's modern business world, we need to give senior leaders permission to not know everything. You simply can't. And in fact, in my view, the inverse is more powerful. So when you go to a
Yeah.
team and say, "Hey, this one's complicated. This one's hairy. This one has multiple layers. I'm not quite sure what to do. I need us all to think about it." If you can do that and they feel you, again, there's the heart component. It is amazing what they will come up with. And I've been in the room where we've empowered this, and the youngest person in the room that has no experience, right, necessarily in the real world yet, has an extraordinary idea that solves a problem in a way we never would have thought of, right? So
Yeah.
the leader's intent as a tool, it's just one example, gives
Yeah.
permission for people to go from A to B in a crazy quilt sort of way when the old
Yeah.
ponies are wanting to go to A to B in a straight line. So that particular
Yeah.
tool, and Thayer can, if it resonates with folks, they can talk about it that way. But we've baked that one in because it's tangible. It makes sense with the mind, and it's a military tradition, as you know. It's used in all the
Yep.
services in different
Yep.
ways. That actually is something people can glom onto that creates the space for dialogue if it's done right.
I love that you brought that up because I don't think it's something that people, at least for me, would immediately think about as a strategy to promote people speaking up. Normally I think about, oh, like how do we create a trusting environment? How do we make sure to pause? And like in the pilot world, we have timeouts or like safety timeouts that can be called. Anybody in the cockpit can say like, hey, timeout, we need to talk about this.
Right.
But it really is true that just clarity of purpose gives people more freedom, because the reason why so often people in lower ranks or in the lower rungs feel constrained or aren't sure how to act or how to move forward is because they're not fully certain what the point is or what the objective is. And if they don't, then maybe even if they do reach out, if they do speak up, because they weren't sure what was supposed to happen, then what they suggest is just kind of totally off the mark because they don't have the right understanding, and so then they get slapped down, and then they feel like, oh well, I'm not supposed to bring my voice up, when really it that whole thing happened because it comes back to the leader of being clear what the point is so that people do, because it really is an empowering thing
Yeah.
to allow people that
Very well
space.
said, right? If somebody knows, I would say, you want the end state because that's really another version of what does success look like. But if you can tell someone
Yes.
the purpose, and you just gave them purpose, arguably, and you
Yep.
really had the space for them to do it, they will find innovative, creative ways because they know where they're
Yes.
going. So then
Yeah.
you don't have to go to the leader, like you said, for every decision. Okay, boss.
Yeah.
Okay, boss, what do you think here? What do you
Yeah.
think here? No, because they can get to your
Yeah.
purpose and your end state if you've identified it. And it's hard, by the way. Writing a leader's
Yeah.
intent is not
Yes.
easy,
Yeah.
but you,
Yeah.
you actually can create the space and they come up with amazing, crazy, quilt ways, but they get there. And the crazy quilt way, there's your innovation. That's where all the
Yeah.
magic happens. But if you're not careful and you're a driver of the organization, you're going to make them go from A to B, even if you don't say it outright. They're going to feel the pressure
Yeah.
to go to A to B in the way you say they should go to A to B. And it takes us back to the earlier part of our conversation. If you're a leader that wants to go to A to B and just drive, just say it and do it. Don't
Yeah.
pretend, because the destruction you
Yeah.
do for young people trying to find their way when they have an innovative idea and you say, I want to hear your innovative ideas, and then you absolutely eviscerate them. As you can tell, I get emotional. It makes me angry, but a lot of people fall into
Yeah.
that trap, and there's a lot going on in leaders' lives too. We have to acknowledge it. It's a stressful environment. There is no
Yeah.
non-stressful place anywhere, but it's leader responsibility, leader business to pause and say, okay, am I empowering my team? And if you don't do that every day, you're going to get swallowed by the tyranny of the daily. And I find that to be leader
Yeah.
responsibility. So when we go back to the beginning, where it's hard, but it's an honor, and your job is
Yeah.
to create the next generation of yous. That also runs contrary to
Yeah.
the me universe, right? But
Hmm.
if you're
Hmm.
actually investing in your people in the right ways with heart and mind and empowering them and challenging them, you can challenge them and still get stuff done and do amazing things. But it is fascinating when you find the right mixture of that and you empower them, how much performance accelerates. And,
Hmm.
and, and in the
Yeah.
manufacturing space, it can work. So the problem is, not problem, but let's say you got to live it. You just can't pay lip service to it and let's do a 30-minute PowerPoint every third week to talk about innovation. The modern world doesn't need that hoo-ha anymore.
No.
Get to
No.
work, get real, and take care of your people. And there's lots of ways to do that. But um, that OKRs and our methodologies work for tech manufacturing because we got to get product out the door, but we're also a conglomeration of global humans, amazing people around the
Hmm.
world that deserve to be empowered and contribute as much as we can have them contribute. And then, by the way, hopefully keep them in the Seagate family for as long as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned OKRs because just hearing you talk about it, I'm guessing that's why that kind of model for one of the tools that you provide leaders seems like it lends itself really well to OKRs. It's just continuing this idea of clarity of purpose, clarity of outcomes, to allow people to run as fast as they can because they don't have to spend a lot of time questioning the direction that they're going, so they can just run faster.
That is true, and there's nuances to OKRs that bring horsepower to the table. Let's put it right, and if you, in my
Mm.
view, if you do them right, So we had a system, and it happens to every company. You put a system in that made sense 8 years ago, things change, and suddenly it gets all gobbledygooky, and it doesn't make sense anymore. But that's how we've always done it, and can we change it? And do we have time to change it? Well, Seagate was going through a very difficult time for 8 quarters, and we knew inherently with our gut, and we talked with senior leaders like, hey, we need to make a change to things that help us focus. And our boss, the big boss, would say, hey, we need to cut away the noise. There's so much noise always in every way. So how do we focus such a large, amazing group of people in a very critical time with a supply chain that's hurting and all the things, right? And how do we focus folks? So objectives and key results entered the picture, and we did it in a. Most people wouldn't change an entire organizational's organization structure in a time of crisis. But in fact, if you're paying attention and listening to understand, it may be the perfect time to do it.
Absolutely.
But again, it goes to the
Absolutely.
culture of whether the company will underwrite that, right? And we live in one
Yeah.
where we talk with senior leaders, we bounced it around, we had good, honest adult conversations about, hey, is this doable? What makes sense? And then we pulled the trigger on it. But objectives,
Yeah.
short, inspirational, right? And people feel them, is the way I'll put it in my speak. Key results are outcome based, like we talked before. What are the outcomes? Don't talk to me about the 42 things. Are the outcomes generating the energy we need to support the corporate objectives? So there's only
Mhm.
3 corporate objectives now in Seagate. And what had happened before is all the
Love it.
systems, red lights, green lights, orange lights, and there were briefings to prepare for the briefings to prepare for the briefings so that we had the right color. And then there was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know, it's really not orange. It's more orange and green. It's sort of yellow,
Mm.
and just a lot of stress. And it was not contributing to good senior leader decision making. And that's not a fault. It happens to every corporation. But I would urge people to
Yeah.
pause and go, hey, something so critical as what we're aligning to get done, are we able to create the fabric so that our newest person that joins the team can feel what he, she, or they do in the corporate objectives? And that's why we love OKRs, because they allow, it's a bridge. I think it's a bridge thing. You can build your OKRs at the most junior level, but if you build them
Yeah.
right, and they're hard, by the way, too, you can actually see yourself in the 3 main corporate objectives. And if you see yourself, you're going to work harder. You know that the stuff you're
Yeah.
doing is meaningful. You feel heard, and we celebrate your successes because you're helping Seagate win. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of structure, how we did it, a lot of pieces. You had to find the necks that turn the heads, right? Who are the power brokers, officially or not? There's an art and science, as all your listeners know, into this. But for us, OKRs work because they're human. People can go,
I like it.
it makes sense. Like they can see it, they can feel it, and then
Yeah.
and they're empowered by means of how OKRs work to contribute in their own way. For instance, my organization, when we first implemented, because I said, I'm not giving you learning development performance OKRs. You write yours. Here's the corporate ones. Go forth. Take your
Mm.
big old stubby pencils
Mm.
and figure it
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
Because otherwise,
Mhm. Mhm.
there's different ways to look. You can cascade them, you can ladder them in. They're really artful OKRs, and if
Yeah.
you study that particular thing and how they can be done and create really positive energy and empower folks. But it was amazing to watch. We had our teams. I talked with my direct reports, other senior leaders, and say, "Hey, what do you think?" And we had everybody do their own kind of whiteboardy, and then we took
Yeah.
those and built the organizations from those. So talk about
Yeah.
having a seat at the
Yeah.
table, contributing, and then of course I brought others down
Absolutely.
to make sure we were bridged with our corporate
Yeah.
responsibilities. But
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
everybody had a seat at the table, get stuff done, and OKRs work for us. Little old us.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so this has been a great conversation. I think in what you were just saying, the number one thing that I'm going to take away from this, that you had the perfect quote that just said, cut away the noise. I think if leaders at every level think of their primary responsibility, especially in today's world, as cutting away the noise for their people, that's probably not a bad direction to
Oh,
go because everybody's so busy. It's just, yeah,
I agree. Let me add to that one, just because we're passionate about the business of people, because the business
yeah,
of people is gets the
yeah,
business of business done. Two things. One, that was our CEO. That's why it stuck with me. We got to cut away the noise. It made sense to me. It made sense to you right now. The second thing
yeah,
is with senior leaders in particular, and others may disagree, but my view is, and I talk to my folks in a couple things. First, my sole responsibility is to clear space for their success. That is my
yes,
job. The only thing that
yes,
comes with my position and titles, if we operate in titles, is it allows me to snowplow in the right ways with heart and mind, space for the team to do
yes,
and execute the leader's intent and get stuff done. So if you're not
yes,
thinking about your daily as a senior leader, you will be pulled into the tactical every day. That's the tyranny of the day.
yeah,
They will, the people, it's just human nature. They will pull you into tactical stuff. You have to remain
Yeah.
focused on clearing space, and then let your people go through that space, or whatever analogy you want to do. So clearing, cutting away noise is connected to, at least for little old me, of also clearing the space and then giving clear OKRs, right, or clear leaders' intent on where we're taking those, and then you set them free in there. And then one other way
Yeah.
we've heard it said over the years of great leaders is, hey, this one also came from Thayer's. Are you doing only those things you can do? So in the morning for senior
Mm-hmm.
leaders with your cup of Joe, you ask yourself the question: Am
Mm-hmm.
I doing today only those things I can do? Right,
Yep.
and that's a powerful question, because I would say most of us, the answer is no. Not only no, but triple hell no,
Really no.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of all
Yeah.
the chaos of the daily 400 emails when you wake up. We're global. So when one side's of the world sleeping, you wake up. But if you ask yourself that question over that cup of coffee in the morning, or cup of tea, or like me, hot chocolate, and you say, hey, am I doing only the things I can do? That's a fair question. Very hard, but a fair one. And that
Yep.
keeps us focusing on plowing in the right ways. And then everything else can be delegated. And when you delegate, that gives your subordinates chance to grow and lean into space. Again, leader business,
Yeah.
just a way to think through it.
I love it. I love it. This is so great. I think it's given a lot of people, given me a lot to think about, but also a lot of clarity about kind of if you're going to try to do one thing as a leader, what to focus on. So this has been great. Thank you for talking us through it. Thank you for telling us a little bit more about Seagate. I think hopefully some people take a minute to watch the video because there is so much to learn. It sounds like an amazing organization. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here, because in the big scheme of things, we pay it forward to each other. So just to be able to kind of throw a few things out for consideration, I learn every day. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you are looking for help turning your organization's great engineers into great managers, me and my team at Better Everyday Studios would love to help. We deliver targeted and interactive training workshops that are designed to help build the 3 fundamental skills of any new manager: building trust, giving feedback, and setting goals. Reach out to me through matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can start making your organization better every day.